All right, so Bitcoin. It's everywhere you turn these days, right? But what's it all about? Beyond the headlines about crazy price swings and confusing jargon. We're diving into all of that today.
What's really interesting is that Bitcoin, it's not just some passing tech fad, right?
Mhm.
This thing is challenging how we think about money, about the whole financial system, really.
We're using the Bitcoin Wikipedia page to guide us today. And, well, let me just say, it's pretty dense.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is, which is why you're here, to help
Definitely.
us extract those golden nuggets, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. Consider this your crash course on Bitcoin, what it is, how it works, why it even matters, even if you walk away never having bought a single Bitcoin.
Love it. Okay, so let's start basic, but a level up from Bitcoin is digital currency. I think our listeners are beyond that. What makes this truly different? Like, I can pay with Apple Pay, right?
The big difference is, well, it all comes down to decentralization. Imagine a currency, but it's completely outside the control of any bank or government. You're not relying on some central authority to manage your money.
Okay, so no more watching the Fed make some decision and panicking about my wallet. That's kind of huge when you put it that way.
It really is a different way of thinking about it. Bitcoin uses a global network of computers. They work together, verifying transactions and maintaining a public record of every Bitcoin transaction ever made. It's the blockchain.
The blockchain, right? Like a giant, public ledger, completely transparent. Everyone can see it, so no one can cheat the system, right?
Yeah. That's the idea. That transparency, combined with cryptography, hence the crypto in cryptocurrency, makes it incredibly secure. Imagine sending like a secret code. Only the recipient can unlock it.
Speaking of unlocking, Bitcoin's had a wild ride, to say the least. Remember that story about the pizza someone bought with like 10,000 Bitcoins? Talk about value fluctuations.
Right. That pizza would be worth, well, a fortune today. Bitcoin's journey, it's been anything but predictable. Even from those early days, back in 2008, with that anonymous creator, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Who is Satoshi, by the way? It's like this huge mystery.
To this day, still a mystery. Some say it was one brilliant mind, others a whole group of developers. Whoever it was, they definitely shook things up.
Big time. So we've gone from those early days to now seeing Bitcoin ATMs and ETFs popping up. It's gone mainstream. But the actual mechanics of it, I think a lot of people are still like, how does a Bitcoin transaction even happen? What does that even look like?
It's really fascinating when you break it down. Let's start with the peer-to-peer network, okay? Think of it like a decentralized internet. Everyone has equal access.
So instead of data flowing through one central server, it's like everyone's directly connected, sharing information.
You got it. That structure, that's what makes Bitcoin transactions possible directly between users. No bank, no middleman involved.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But how do we know it's secure? How do we make sure no one's messing with those transactions? That's where the blockchain comes in again, right?
You got it. So you send Bitcoin to someone, that transaction, it's broadcast to the entire network, and it's verified by miners.
Mining, right. That's like what? Digital digging for gold. Those powerful computers solving problems, and if they get it right, boom, Bitcoin reward.
You got it. And here's where it gets really cool. Bitcoin doesn't actually have accounts like a bank.
Wait, really? Okay, now my mind is blown. Explain that one.
Imagine this. Instead of one big piggy bank, you have a bunch of smaller ones, each with a little Bitcoin in it. When you want to send some, your wallet, it figures out which combination from those smaller piggy banks adds up to the amount you want to send.
So instead of taking money out of one big pile, you're basically, what, piecing together the right amount from smaller ones?
Exactly. Those smaller piggy banks, we call those UTXOs, or unspent transaction outputs. It's a mouthful, but a clever system makes it very flexible, very secure.
Okay, that makes sense. But now I'm curious about those Bitcoin addresses. They're those strings of letters and numbers, right?
Yeah.
What are those all about?
Those addresses, they're crucial for secure transactions. Think of them like email addresses, but for your Bitcoin. Each one is totally unique, and it's connected to a specific wallet.
So I want to send some Bitcoin. I'm going to need their unique address to make sure it gets to the right place.
Exactly, like addressing an envelope. You need the right address so your letter gets to the intended person.
Right, okay. But I've noticed some addresses look different. Some start with a 1, some a 3. I think I even saw one with a BC1 once. What's that about?
Good eye. You've discovered Bitcoin address formats. It seems like a small detail, but understanding them can actually save you money on those transaction fees.
Okay, lower fees. I'm listening. Tell me more about these different formats.
The most common one is a P2PKH address. They usually start with a 1, and it's actually the original format for Bitcoin addresses.
So I see an address starting with a 1. That's a P2PKH address.
Got it, and 1. Now, there's also P2SH, which starts with a 3 fight. Those offer more advanced features, like multi-signature wallets. That's where you need multiple people to sign off on a transaction.
Oh, that makes sense for maybe like a business or anyone who wants that extra layer of security, really.
For sure. And then we have Back3 a newer format. You'll recognize it by the BC1 at the beginning. These were introduced as part of a big Bitcoin upgrade, SegWit.
SegWit, right. That was all about making Bitcoin more efficient, if I remember correctly.
You have a great memory. One of the perks of using those BIC32 addresses is that they usually mean lower transaction fees for you.
Okay, now we're talking my language, lower fees. So should I be looking out for those BIC32 addresses when I'm using my Bitcoin wallet?
In general, it's a good idea to use BIC32 if you can, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best combo of security, efficiency, and lower fees. But just double check that your wallet, or the exchange you're using actually supports it.
Good to know. It's like choosing a wallet is a whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider.
There is. We might have to do a whole deep dive on wallets another time. But for now, you've got the basics down. You understand the key players in a Bitcoin transaction. That peer-to-peer network, the blockchain, miners, UTXOs, even those addresses.
Wow, we really got into the weeds there, huh? It's amazing how it all works together to make a system that's both secure and decentralized.
It's a testament to just how ingenious Bitcoin's design really is.
It really is. Okay, so we've done the technical deep dive, but let's zoom out for a second. What does this all mean for the average person? Like, should we all be running out to buy Bitcoin? Is that the takeaway here?
That's the million-dollar question, or should I say, the million in Bitcoin question. But in all seriousness, even without getting deep into the technical stuff, just understanding Bitcoin gives you this peek into what the future of finance might look like.
A future where we've got more control over our money, right? Lower fees, transactions are almost instant, and the whole system is more transparent. It's kind of hopeful in a way.
Absolutely. And it's not just about Bitcoin itself either. The tech behind it, the blockchain, it can revolutionize so many industries.
All right, so we talked about this decentralized network, the blockchain, but I think it's time to really lift the hood here and look at what makes this thing tick. Ready to get a little more technical.
Absolutely. I think once you understand the mechanics behind Bitcoin, it's really quite elegant.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's imagine a Bitcoin transaction in action, okay? So you're sending some Bitcoin to a friend. Now, this transaction, it doesn't just go through poof, just like that. It's actually broadcast to the entire network, and it needs to be verified.
So it's like sending a message to everyone saying, hey, I just sent some Bitcoin. But how do we know it's legit? How do we know it's not a fake message?
That, my friend, is where the miners come in. Remember them. They're like digital detectives, verifying these transactions, making sure everything's on the up and up, and then adding them to the blockchain.
It's like a giant digital puzzle they're all trying to solve, right?
Exactly. And of course, if they solve it, they get that Bitcoin reward.
Yeah.
Little incentive to keep things running smoothly.
Makes sense. Okay, but you said something earlier that I have to circle back to because it blew my mind a little bit. Bitcoin doesn't have accounts like, a regular bank.
It's a different way of thinking about it, right? No accounts. Instead, think of it this way. Imagine you have not one big piggy bank, but a whole bunch of smaller ones. And each one has a little bit of Bitcoin in it.
Okay, I'm picturing this. Lots of little piggy banks. Got it.
So when you want to send some Bitcoin, your wallet, it doesn't just take it from one place. It figures out, okay, which combination of these smaller piggy banks adds up to the amount this person wants to send.
So instead of like scooping money out of one big pile, you're piecing together the right amount from smaller ones.
Exactly. And those smaller piggy banks, we call them UTXOs. Stands for unspent transaction outputs. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a pretty ingenious system that makes Bitcoin very secure and really flexible.
Okay, UTXOs. Got it. So now I have to ask about those Bitcoin addresses. Those strings of letters and numbers, they seem so random. What are those all about?
Those addresses, they are super important because they let you send and receive Bitcoin securely. Think of them like email addresses, but for your Bitcoin. Each one is unique, and it's tied to a specific wallet.
Okay, so if I'm sending Bitcoin to someone, I need their unique Bitcoin address to make sure it goes to the right place, right?
You got it. Just like when you're sending a regular letter, you need the right address on the envelope. Otherwise, who knows where it'll end up, right?
Right. Okay, but I've noticed some of those addresses, they look a little different. Some start with a 1, some with a 3. I swear I even saw one that started with BC1 ones. What's up with that?
Ah, you're paying attention. You've discovered the world of Bitcoin address formats. They might seem like a small detail, but understanding them can save you money on those pesky transaction fees.
Lower fees. All right, you got my attention. Break it down for me.
Okay, so the most common one you'll see is a P2PKH address. They usually start with a 1, and it's the OG Bitcoin address format. Been around since the beginning.
So I see an address and it starts with 1. I know it's a P2PKH address.
Exactly. Then we have P2SH addresses. They start with a 3-foot. They come with some more bells and whistles, things like multi-signature wallets, which means you need multiple people to authorize a transaction.
Oh, that's a good one for businesses or anyone who really wants that extra security, huh?
Exactly. And then we've got Bet32, which is a newer format. You'll recognize it by that BC1 at the start. These addresses were rolled out as part of a big Bitcoin upgrade called SegWit.
SegWit. I remember hearing about that. It was all about making Bitcoin more efficient, right?
You've got a great memory.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits of those Bet32 addresses is that they often come with lower transaction fees.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Lower fees, I like the sound of that. So, should I be looking for Bet32 addresses when I'm using my Bitcoin wallet?
It's a good rule of thumb, yeah. Bet32, when you can, for the best security, efficiency, and of course those lower fees. But always double check that your wallet or the exchange you're using actually supports it.
Good advice. It's kind of making me realize that just choosing a Bitcoin wallet is a whole other conversation.
It really is.
Yeah.
We might have to save that for another deep dive. But for now, you've got a good grasp on the basics. You understand those key players in a Bitcoin transaction. The peer-to-peer network, the blockchain, miners, UTXOs, even those addresses.
Wow, when you lay it all out like that, it's really impressive. It really shows how all these different parts work together to create a system that's both secure and decentralized. It's pretty elegant when you get down to it.
It really is a testament to how well-designed Bitcoin is, absolutely.
Okay, so we've taken that technical deep dive, but let's zoom out for a second. Big picture here. What does all this mean for, the average person? Should we all be rushing out to buy Bitcoin after this? Is that the takeaway?
That is the million-dollar question, or should I say the million Bitcoin question. But really, even without getting into all the technical details, just having this basic understanding of Bitcoin, it lets you see what the future of finance could look like. And that's exciting.
A future where, we have more control over our own money, lower fees, transactions are almost instant. The whole system is more transparent. It's kind of hopeful when you think about it that way.
It is. And it's not just limited to Bitcoin either. The tech behind it, the blockchain, has the potential to change so many different industries.
Okay, so we've gone deep on the tech behind Bitcoin. It's wild ride of a history, weighed the pros and cons, but it all comes down to this. What's the big takeaway? Why should someone listening right now care about any of this?
It's easy to get lost in the technical weeds, right?
Hmm.
But the real magic is how Bitcoin could change everything. It really makes you think differently.
It's challenging those systems we've always just, accepted.
Right.
Banks, governments, Bitcoin's like, hold on, what if we did things differently?
Right. Imagine a world where you're really in control of your own money. Transactions are global, almost instant, and the whole system is more transparent. That's the potential.
Okay, I can get behind that future, but you said something earlier that stuck with me. It's bigger than Bitcoin itself, right? It's the tech behind it. That blockchain thing, that's what could revolutionize all kinds of industries, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Think about supply chains. Imagine tracking a product from where it's made to your doorstep. You know it's authentic, ethically sourced, all that. Or what about storing medical records on a blockchain? Patients would have so much more control over their own data.
Wow, that's huge. So blockchain could actually make the digital world more trustworthy, more efficient. It's kind of mind-blowing.
And we're already starting to see it happen.
Yeah.
Companies are using blockchain in all sorts of ways, from verifying diamonds to making sure our food is safe.
So even if someone never buys a single Bitcoin, this tech could still have a real impact on their lives.
Definitely. That's why it's important to wrap your head around these changes, even if you're not, tech wizard. It reminds me of the early days of the internet. No one could have predicted how much it would change our lives. I think we're on the verge of something similar with blockchain.
It's exciting, but also a little bit intimidating, right? We're stepping into the unknown here.
Exactly. Every new technology comes with opportunities and challenges. It's up to us to make sure we're using these tools in a way that benefits everyone.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nuts and bolts of how Bitcoin works to the potential impact it could have on, everything. But before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with a little something to think about, something to spark their curiosity.
How about this? We've talked about blockchain improving the systems we already have. But what about its potential to create entirely new systems? Like, could this lead to new ways of governing ourselves, doing business, even making art, things we haven't even imagined yet?
Whoa, that's a really interesting thought. It's not just about upgrading our world, it's about the possibility of creating entirely new worlds. That's pretty profound when you think about it.
That's the beauty of it. The story of Bitcoin and blockchain is still being written, and we all have the chance to be a part of it.
I love that. It's been amazing exploring the world of Bitcoin with you. Thanks for being our guide today.
My pleasure. And for everyone listening, keep learning, keep asking questions, and dive deeper into this fascinating world. There's so much to discover.
And until next time, happy diving, everyone.